So recently I've been having this problem, which only seems to happen after it gets humid. But every once in a while, I'll come out to my car and I'll try to start it, and nothing really happens. So I'll turn the key here, and I get my regular screen like I normally do. So my lights all come on. And sometimes what will happen is my stereo here, it'll go into standby mode. So it'll forget what setting it was on when I come out. And sometimes the clock won't be at the right time. So it's not the right time now, but I haven't bothered with resetting it. So right now it seems like okay. But the problem is I'll go to crank it here and the car just shuts off. So I get a click, but it doesn't try to turn over or anything. And now all my lights are completely dead. So what this seems like is it's kind of like a battery problem or a starter problem here. So what I'll do is I'll just turn off my key and I'll just give it a little while here. Okay, apparently it needs some encouragement, so let's go take a look.
So what's weird about this problem is that sometimes I can just wiggle the wires or disconnect the clamps, and that'll be enough to get the lights to come back on. Really, my goal is just get the lights on, which means my ECU has power, and at that point, once the ECU has some power and can start sending signal to the injectors, I can just push start the car and be on my way.
So already, now that I went and jiggled that cable there, you can kind of tell something's up because my lights are back on, just like everything's normal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push start it. So what I do is I just kind of park on this hill.
And the idea is to just get the car rolling by putting the transmission in neutral and then having the key in the on position.
Just pop it into first here, just get rolling down the hill, try to build up some momentum. And there we go. So let's get it home and take a look and see what we see. So I just pulled up home here, and kind of a cold, rainy day now. So I've got the headlights and the wipers going here, so I'll just shut those off. Make sure my HVAC is shut off here. And now I'm gonna shut off the car. And I'm just gonna let it sit for a couple seconds here and see if it'll start back up again. So get my clutch pushed in, go for it to start. I hear the fuel pump prime, and even though I just drove home 30 minutes, it completely died on me again. So this kind of seems like at this point it's going to be a battery or an alternator. Maybe the alternator didn't charge the battery on the drive home, so the battery didn't have enough charge to start again, or maybe the battery just isn't holding a charge, and so when I go to start it again, it completely dies. But I already know that neither of those are the answer here. So let me get it started again for you, and we'll take a look underneath the hood. I'm going to be using my voltmeter to try to investigate a little bit further what's going on. So for starters, I'm going to set it to the 20 volt range, like so. And I just want to test that I'm getting connection here. So I'll go to the continuity setting. My voltmeter is getting a little old, so every once in a while the probes need to be reseated.
Alright, so they're in good contact. So with my voltmeter working now, I first want to test the voltage between the terminals of the battery. With the car running, the voltage should be above 14 volts, and that 14 volts allows the battery to charge even though it usually only holds about 12.8 or somewhere in that range when the car is off. But I'm only getting 13 volts measured at the terminals of the battery. So the next step is I'm going to measure the voltage at the wires themselves and see if I get 14 volts there. Anything less than 14 volts means that my alternator output is too low, but I am getting 14 volts on my wires, So now I'm going to measure the voltage drop between the wire and the terminal on the negative and the positive side. Ideally, there should be 0 voltage drop between the two, which means there's a good connection. But I'm seeing about a half volt voltage drop between the wire and the terminal, so I know I'm not getting a good connection between those. So at this point, I'm suspecting a bad connection between the actual clamp and the terminals. So what I did is I shut off the car, and I'm putting on gloves now because there's going to be the corrosive acids on the terminals. So you can see the corrosive acid there, and I'm just going to take off the terminals. I've already taken off the negative terminal, and that one was fairly clean, so I didn't bother with gloves. But now I need to take off the positive terminal, and it's important to always take negative off before taking off the positive, because that air intake tube there, for example, is grounded to the chassis. So if the negative terminal was still connected, it accidentally bumped the intake tube with my wrench while I'm trying to get the terminal off, it would cause an arc, and then I'd get 12 volts flowing through my hand. So that's not really comfortable. So I'm going to take those off and clean them up as best I can. So the way I clean it up is I have this little battery terminal cleaner that I keep in my car. Unfortunately, I didn't have the wrenches back at work to clean up the terminals there, but I do have the battery terminal stowed away in my car just for occasions like this. So let's get that out and clean up the terminals and the clamps and see if we can get a better connection. So I'm just going to start working away at that terminal and basically spinning the brush around, trying to clean up the corrosion. And you can see as I spin the brush around, I start to see exposed metal, that shiny metal, and that's what I'm shooting for there. So let's get to the negative terminal. And now the other thing is these tools usually have these bristle brushes that you can take the cap off and then scrub the clamps as well to clean up that connection. So the idea is to get bare metal there so we can get a very good metal to metal contact between the clamp and the terminals as well. So I'm just going to work away at those and get those cleaned up real quick. One thing to watch out for is don't breathe in the particles coming off. So there's some of that corrosive acid on the battery as well as the metal flakes. So it's a good idea to have some type of personal protective equipment that helps prevent breathing in those harmful particles. So at this point, I'm just going to cheat and bring in power tools. It's always really annoying to have this issue come up, so I just want to scrub the clamps down to completely bare metal and prevent this from happening anytime soon. One thing is just make sure to have safety glasses on when doing this. And check out that nice finish I'm getting on the clamps. So alright, let's get this put back together and see if it cranks. And just like before, when taking it apart, we just want to make sure to get our work done on the positive terminal and then do the negative terminal last. And again, that's just to keep the chassis from being connected to the battery, so that way we don't create an arc and short something out. Let's give it a shot.
Son of a...
So that time I actually had a helper watching the battery as I tried to start the car, and he noticed there was a spark on the wires themselves where there's that connector to the clamp. So I give it a shot here and I hear a loud click. So considering that the shorting or the sparks are coming from the wires, it seems like something's going on where there's corrosion that's creating a short on those wires. So I'm taking apart the positive terminal here, and I want to get in and basically strip the wires down and get fresh copper to connect with that clamp. So I'm just using my wire strippers here and stripping off the end of the starter wire so I can get some fresh copper. And then I'm also just going to clean up the large bundle there for the main connectee for the large connection. And then that way I'll have a good connection, everything electrically connected, and that way hopefully I'll have the ability to crank the motor finally. So at this point I'm just putting the wires back into the clamp, and I'm going to securely tighten everything down now that it's clean, and just put everything back together and give it another go. And what do we get? That's the sound of success. Even though it seemed like it could have been the starter with the clicking whenever you tried to crank the engine, or a bad battery that wouldn't hold charge, or maybe it was just an alternator that wasn't charging the battery, it actually just came down to a bad connection between the wires and the terminal clamps. So this becomes a common problem for older cars since the wires tend to age and corrode. You kind of see this buildup of corrosion that prevents connections like this. And that's going to be a common theme with my videos, is just trying to get down to the heart of the issue and properly diagnose a problem going on with the car instead of just throwing parts at a problem to try to fix it. And ultimately, it's just in the interest of saving money and time and frustration. So make sure to subscribe for more videos, and thanks for watching.